Good morning, Stampers. Welcome to Learning with Friends. We are going to have some fun today making some different backgrounds using a few different techniques and our decorative masks. Now, we're familiar with decorative masks and using them most often with either like a blending brush or sponge dauber, but we're not going to use those today. We're going to do some, I hope, a little bit more unique things. So let's get started. And I'll go to my other camera. The masks I'm going to be using are the Link Together. They are from the Link Together bundle. They're included in that bundle. And these masks are mainly kind of what I would call trellis masks. I've got a couple of them already set up to use, but they're basically different shapes of trellises. It's kind of what I would call them. There's a fine one, and then they get a little bit thicker. And there's also this one here that we are not going to use, that just has these dots, kind of like flowers that align with the trellis. So you can get flowers, I guess, or dots, whatever you want to call them, in the trellises. We're not going to use this one. We're going to start with this one. This is the #1 mask. It is the finest one, probably looks the most like a trellis. And what I like to do is I like to use something where I can affix my background to so it doesn't, and then I can affix the mask over it so they don't move around. Because sometimes the challenge is you lay them on here and you start making your background and it moves, right? Now you got to get it back lined up. So this is what I do. I usually take some temporary adhesive and I just adhere it to something. I have these little inexpensive clipboards that I bought for a class several years ago. So I like to use those. They're plastic, you get ink on them, they're easy to clean up. But you could just use a piece of cardboard, or honestly, for some of them, you could just affix it right to your desktop. It's just, you want something that just sort of holds them in place. Now this one, we're not going to be too rough with it, so I'm just going to take some temporary adhesive. I'm going to place my mask over it, and I've used this painter's tape many times on my videos. As I've said before, terrible for painter's tape because the paint always goes behind it, but it works wonderful for masking tape because it never tears the paper or anything when you rip it off. So now I'm set to go. And what I'm going to do with this one, I was looking for something just kind of, I didn't want a clean white background and I didn't want it to look too perfect. I just wanted something that had a little bit of interest. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to make the background and then I'm going to show you the card that I made using that background. So in this case, I kind of wanted it to look like it could be a sky. So I picked 3 different blues. I have Azure Afternoon, Blueberry Bushel, and Balmy Blue. And I started with those, okay? And with this technique, what I like to do is I start with the lightest one first. And I probably put most of that one on. Now, what we're going to use, I said we weren't going to use blending brushes. We could certainly use a blending brush or a sponge dauber, but we're not going to. We are going to use plastic wrap. And I have this Reynolds plastic wrap. You can use any kind you want. Saran wrap, Glad wrap, whatever you have, doesn't matter. Use the cheap stuff. I just use what I have, and we're going to take a small piece of this, and we're just going to kind of crumple it up. And where I came up with this technique was actually for something totally unrelated to card making. I'd never made a card in my life back when I started using plastic wrap. I used it to paint walls, like an accent wall, maybe in a bathroom or an office, whatever. And I took pieces of plastic wrap In that case, I had a little bit bigger piece, but I scrunched it into a ball and I dabbed it in some paint and then tapped a lot of it off with the paint and then tapped it on the walls. But we're just going to use ink because this is a card, and I'm going to start with the lighter color and I just tap it in my ink pad lightly, and then I take this and I just start tapping it on my, get some more if I want to, maybe tap on a different size. So that this is what for sure I did on the walls. Kept rearranging it because you didn't want each little blotch to look like the blotch next to it, right? You wanted it to look like it was totally random. So just kind of rearrange and twist and turn in different spots. And again, like I said, I wanted to keep it light, and I thought I'm just going to focus on a kind of a corner. So, and I probably used, as I got to each color, I used less. So now since I am sticking with blue, I'm not too concerned. I can take this and re-scrunch it up again. My fingers are probably going to get inky because there is ink on this. And I can go to my next darker color, which is Azure Afternoon. And with each layer, kind of look at it. Sometimes I will add less of one color, more of another. It's totally up to you what you want it to look like. So let me get rid of this one, and we're going to add a little blueberry bushel. You want it to use different shades. You can use different shades of the same color. You can use all different colors, whatever the look you're after is. So let's add a little blueberry bushel. Since I was looking for a sky, now you can probably see that is definitely darker, but that's good. That's what I wanted. And I didn't necessarily want a lot of that. So I think that's enough. Now, when I looked at this, I thought, it needs something. It just to me looked a little bit bland. Now it's going to look better when I pull the mask off because you will see the shapes through the mask. But I thought, let's add a little yellow and just see how it looks. And I kind of like that. It gave it a little bit more pop of color. So I grabbed some crushed curry and I just added just a little bit, not much. You see that? It just brings, I thought, a little bit of color in. Obviously, I could use 3 totally different colors. You could use rainbow colors. You could make it an ombre. You can do whatever you want. But now we're going to take the mask off. And there's my background. You can see the trellis in there lightly. It's not distinct because I didn't put a lot of ink on. If I had put a lot more on and filled in each little section, it would look totally different. And that's what's fun with this, is you just kind of play and come up with, depending on how you want to use it in your card. I'm going to throw this in some water just because I don't want the ink really to dry on it. Get this out of the way. And let me show you the card. So this is the card I made using that. And I'm going to bring it in close. I hope you can see that background that we just made. I had all these die cuts. This is from the Mixed Florals online exclusive stamp set. This was me just playing around with it for some blog posts that'll be coming in the next week or so. And I sort of had this vision of having this, I wanted this large die cut. And I put it just on plain cardstock first, and it was on a background, white background. And it just didn't, it needed something. So that's how I decided I'm going to use this trellis background. So, like I said, this is with mixed florals. Beautiful stamp set. My favorite one is probably the flowers that have tulips or some tulips in there. On the inside, I just added a couple more die cut flowers. I didn't know how many I was going to need of these, so I made a whole bunch of them. Just stamped a bunch and colored them all different colors. And when all said and done, I really only needed 3 on the front. Anything additional, I was going to stack them up, make a real flower, and it just looked like too much. So that is our first card. Did some stamping right here on the envelope. Now for the inside of that card, obviously you could have stamped those flowers. I just had extras, so that's what I use. So the next technique, let me clean up my spot. I got stuff everywhere because I have 3 different techniques I'm going to show you. The next one, I am going to use these enamel effects. I have had these for a long time. I totally always forget about using them. There are so many different techniques that I've seen you can do with them. So I'm going to use them just to create a background with a different mask from the same set of masks, the same linked together decorative tile masks. It's a little bit broader trellis. It's a little fatter. This one is mask number 3, if you're curious. I think they get a little thicker as you go down. And the paper I am using, instead of using just regular white paper, I decided to use some designer series paper. This is from the Wildly Flowering DSP, and it kind of looks like a linen, probably crumb cake, I guess I would call it. A little dark for crumb cake, but kind of a crumb cake. And we are going to play with enamel effects. So I've already attached it to my clipboard. I did it just like I showed you before. So I figured I didn't need to show you again. So I have my silicone mat, and I should have cleaned it a little bit. I see I got glue on here. Let me wipe that off. With this, we're going to mix the color. We're going to use the pearlized enamel white, and we're going to use the metallic gold. But I really wanted color, so we're going to mix the white and make some colors. I'm going to kind of do it step by step. And I recommend using a silicone mat or something that you can throw away to mix these. I started out, I thought, oh, well, we always mix paint and we use our acrylic blocks like a paint palette. So I used my acrylic block at first. That was not a good idea. I had to scrub to get this off because when it dries, it's pretty well stuck. Now I could get it off. I kind of had to scrape it with my nail, but I'm like, oh, I should have used the silicone mat. So that was my fault. Don't use your acrylic block. If you have a silicone mat, use that. If you don't have a silicone mat, just use like maybe a paper plate or something that you can just throw away and you don't have to worry about getting it off from. So I am going to use 2 different colors. I'm going to use Melon Mambo and Pretty Peacock. So let's go ahead and do the Melon Mambo first. I just made a little dab here, and we'll just add, it does not take much ink. If you haven't done this, you'll be surprised at how little it takes. So just start with, if you can get 1 little drop, do 1 little drop, and then mix it. If it's too dark or not, obviously it's not as dark as you want it, then you can always add more, but you can't take it away. And it does really tend to color very easily. So I had one, we're going to use Pretty Peacock, and I had 2 drips came out, and it was just like kind of way too much. So I had to add some more white, which is fine. We can add more if we want to lighten it up a little bit. I'm going to add just a little bit more, partly for that reason, and just to make sure I have enough, but it'll kind of show you that this will now lighten it. I'm using my palette knives to stir it. It will also dry on those, so be sure you clean them quickly and have some water handy to put them in or something that you can just wipe it off with. I've got a piece of paper towel here. I'm just going to wipe this off and set it in some water. So now I'm going to smear this over this. I'm going to use a different palette knife. I played around with different palette knives. This one worked the best for me to spread it on here. And I don't want to spread it. You can. It's just I'm not after that look. I want it to be just kind of a little bit random in there. So I'm going to pick some up, and I am just going to swipe this on here. I don't even care if I get my squares full or not full. Not full is even better in my book. So there we go. That's where I'm gonna put that. So let me wipe this off. Now I could have probably mixed both colors at once, but this stuff does dry fairly quickly, surprisingly quickly. And so I decided, for me, it worked better. I am not the fastest worker, as I've told you guys many times. So I decided I just was best to color one pile of enamel effects at a time. So now I'm going to see if I can get a little less of this one out, because this is dark. I can get one drop. Okay, I got one instead of two. So let's see how it goes. My other stirring palette knife out here. See how dark that is? Very dark. Now it lightens as you continue to stir, because there's probably white on the bottom. And it's pretty. All right, let's just go ahead and use it. So I'm going to take this off, wipe it off, and I am going to pick some of this up with my other palette knife, and we're just going to smear on here. And don't worry about running over top of each other. That's fine. Blend the colors, let the colors blend together. It makes it kind of interesting. And give it a good scrape. Okay. Clean that off. And the next color I'm going to use is the gold metallic. And we're not going to mix this one with anything. So let me just flip it around here. And we don't even have to stir this one. We can just pick it up. And again, here I did like to overlap this. I might need a little bit more. I don't want my whole thing covered. I want it to look a little more organic. You certainly can. If you want to have your whole square covered, go for it. That's just a matter of taste. It has nothing to do with the technique. And I'm going to grab a little bit and just rub some into the other colors here and there of the gold. I kind of liked it when the colors mixed with the gold. I thought that was just really, really pretty. So let me go ahead and wipe off my silicone mat before I drop something in it, or stick my finger in it, or my sleeve or something. All right. And I do have a little dish of water over here. So let's go ahead and now peel this off. And you want to peel it a little bit carefully here. It looks like it might have pulled up a little bit of paper. Probably got some too much under the, you do want to be careful in not putting too much down, but that's okay, because even if I make my same card that I made before, we can cover that with something, so don't worry about that. But can you see, I come in close, try to tip it and turn it a little bit. I thought it was really pretty how when you mixed and layered the two colors, the gold over the, particularly over the melon mambo, and it maybe looks prettier in person. But that is our background number 2. And now you do want to set this aside to dry because it does take a little bit to dry. And let me show you the card that I made with that. Here's the card that I made with that. And that's what I mean. If you got a spot that you don't really like how it turned out, it's seeped under a little too much, cover it up with a sentiment, cover it up with a gem. I used a die cut here from the Thoughtful Wishes dies. I just added a die cut from Pretty Peacock. A couple of the spots on this die, I thought they look a little bit like flowers. So I stuck a little gold dot there from the gold textured dots. I think they're still available. I'd have to double check. But I just put one of each of those on there, and then I added one on the sentiment. The sentiment is embossed with gold embossing powder. So that is our background number 2. I thought this turned out really pretty. I really liked it. And I kept the inside very simple. Just added a strip. I had covered my card front. It's crumb cake. I had covered it completely with some designer series paper from Thoughtful Journey. It's the back side. If you're familiar with Thoughtful Journey, it's the one with all those beautiful scenery things. So that is card number 2. Now I saved what I think is the best for last. I'm going to clean up here a minute and just get a little bit more out of the way. And I love this technique that I'm going to show you. Before I show you that one, I tried one other one. I thought about baby wipes, and I thought, I wonder if I could take baby wipes and use a mask and swipe it across. I wonder how that would work. I didn't have very good baby wipes. They were a little on the dry side. And I'll show you the background. I did not make a card, but this is what that looked like. I just did kind of a rainbow effect of colors. I wasn't real happy with it. I think if I played with it a little bit more, it was getting better as I got down here to the lighter colors, because I was looking for these stripes as you wipe the baby wipes across, the inked baby wipes. I was looking more for that, and I think I might have had too much ink up here. So this one can be improved, needs some work, but I just wanted to show it to you because I thought, well, you might like baby wipes. You might be an expert at baby wipes. So, all right. Shaving cream. My all-time most favorite background technique is using shaving cream with reinkers. I love doing it. It is so much fun. If you've seen it before, here's a couple of scraps that I dipped in. This is what you would typically get with that technique. Lots of swirls, pretty mix of colors. But we're going to do something different. So let's go ahead and grab our template, and I have one here. This is template number, which one is it? I have to take my little tape off. I have it already. Number 4 from the same Decorative Masks. This one looks like pentagons, kind of, I think. But before we use that, we have to make our pile of shaving cream. Now I needed something big enough to dip, because I wanted, on this one particularly, I wanted to adhere this as best as I could, because I was concerned that the shaving cream was going to seep under, kind of like the enamel effects did a little bit. But this is going to get a lot more opportunity for that because I am going to dip this in the shaving cream. So I've sealed it down as best I can. I picked this particular mask because the sections between the areas are a little bit larger than something like this. I figured something like this, it would have a lot more opportunity to get in behind there. And it does get in behind a little bit, but I can't wait to show you what the ultimate one looks like. So let's go ahead and make our pile of shaving cream. I have whatever was cheap at the dollar store. And we're just going to make a pile of it here. I need a pile big enough so I can dip my complete piece of paper in it. And then the fun part, we are going to take some re-inker. Get these out of the way. And I have kind of a weird color combo I am using. It is from the Color Coach. My coffee club this month gave us a challenge to choose one of the combinations of colors on the Color Coach. And so this is Wild Wheat. This is straight from the Color Coach, Moody Mauve, and Misty Moonlight. Never ever would I have thought about putting those three colors together. Even when I looked at them and pulled them out, I'm like, I'm not sure how that's going to look. But it looks awesome. I loved it. Color Coach was right, once again. So I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit here. And this one you definitely need a towel or something handy because it is messy. It can be messy. If you don't like messy, you're not going to like this. But it's fun. And it looks different every time. So I'm just going to drop probably 3, 4, or 5 drops of each color on my shaving cream. So we'll do the Wild Wheat first. You can kind of judge. If you need to add more later, you can. You want to be able to stir it through, but you don't want to mix it enough where it all starts to blend together. And I've got a fairly large pile of shaving cream here, so I'm probably adding more than I would normally add if you keep your shaving cream a little bit smaller pile. Okay, and now we're going to take our palette knife. You can use a regular knife, kitchen knife, anything, stirring stick, and just kind of swipe it back and forth in different directions. You see how the design is developing? And if it looks like you don't have enough, you can add some more. Again, you don't want to go in and stir, stir, stir. You want it to keep the pattern. You don't want the colors to get too mixed together, if that makes sense. Okay, let's call that good. So now I have my masked paper here. I would recommend, if you have shimmery white, if you have any of that left, we don't sell that anymore. Shimmery white works great because it has a little bit more resistance to water. Otherwise, I would recommend using thick cardstock because the shaving cream does, have a lot of moisture. So we're going to dip this in there. I'm going to kind of push it down just to get it in, but not too hard with this particular technique, and lift it up. And I have shaving cream piles. Now, I like to use a rubber spatula to clean this off. And we're just going to wipe this off. And the fun part is we never know what this is going to look like. So you want to get most of it off. Now, if I were making multiple cards, I could dip another card in here. You can dip probably 3, maybe 4 times. You probably have to smooth this out. It does get mixed more each time you do it. And eventually it will start to turn to mud. So let's pull this up, clean off, get our tape off, and carefully pull up our mask. I have a wastebasket down here. I'm going to throw that in there. And look at that. Is that not just the most beautiful thing? Now, I can show you a couple spots that I see where it has seeped under. But I think if you can see these, each one of these little pentagons looks like a piece of abstract art. Now, I would recommend that you're going to want to wipe this off a little bit more. And I like to use my rubber cake spatula. It seems to clean it a little bit better. I do have a plastic spreader for baking. Like you can use it for frosting, whatever. It's for a frosting thing. I did use this. This will work. It scrapes it not quite as clean as the rubber. Now this can smear it a little bit, but the smearing just kind of adds to the design. See how it is smeared a little bit? Doesn't that look like an abstract piece of art? I think so. So let me show you the card. Where did I put the card? Oh my. Maybe I'm not going to show you the card. That would be a crying shame. I know I have it here. Let me look. Found it. Oh my. Here we go. There is my completed card. This was made with the You Are Beautiful stamp set. Didn't want to cover much of this up, so I just kept this simple. I was just going to put this branch from that stamp set right on the background, but it didn't show very much. It didn't pop the way I was looking, so I put it behind a circle. These are those new around it all circles that are kind of funky in shape, but that is my card made with that thing. I had a little extra piece because I did make a couple of these I played, and so I've used a strip here, used a strip here. I did want to show you here, this was my extra strip, and you can see this one is the one I wiped it clean with this plastic piece, and it does smear it more than the rubber. If you look at it, you can see, although the rubber down here, it may have been a little thicker, but I think the smearing does add something to it. This one came out pretty clean when I wiped it with the rubber spatula. So it just makes a difference as to how it turns out. They turn out different every time. It's what I love about this technique. So let me bring those back and we will wrap this up. Can I find my other 3 cards I had now? Man. All right, here we go. There are today's cards. Let's bring this back. All right, we made it. I'll edit out that little part where I was hunting for the card. You don't need to see me hunting or listen to me like, wait a minute, I can't remember it. I do want to apologize for the mess you see behind me. We have construction starting, and so everything out of the other side of the room in front of me had to be moved over here because that's where the work's getting done. That's kind of a kitchen area, and that's what's getting redone. So it's probably going to get worse behind me before it gets better, as I tend to start moving more and more stuff over here. So I apologize for that. We have to live with construction. It is what it is. I could put a wall or something behind me, but I'm going to do that. So just ignore my mess, all right? Anyway, I hope you like those techniques for backgrounds. Hope you give them a try. It's fun. Yours will turn out different. Don't try to make them match because they never will. Two of mine never turn out the same. So thank you for watching. If you liked it, will you share it with a friend? And give me a thumbs up. And we will be back next week with something else. I think next week is template time. So it's already March. So yeah, next week is template time. So I will be sharing a template with you and showing different ways to use it. So we will see you next week. Until then, have a great week. God bless. And thanks for watching.